Hello there, and welcome back to my stream. This is Junchan, and today we are doing stream things. And what I had scheduled is to continue looking at a topic that I guess is a bit prospective. Let's say it that way, which is what would be a tool that would be sort of a cross between Streamlabs and iMovie. So something that's both conversant with streaming, a streaming approach where you have video streams and overlays and audio mixing and maybe interaction and things like that, which is kind of what Streamlabs does, right? And together with a broadcasting platform like Twitch or YouTube. But there is a gap, right, between publishing a 4-hour streaming video, which is something that I've basically been doing quite a lot, and publishing quite a lot. Let me qualify that. I've only been streaming for less than a month, so that's let's say a little bit. And bridging the gap with the fact that well edited, well presented, to the point, scripted video, which is more the in the province of editing or non-linear editors, as they are called in the professional world, a Premiere or something more consumer friendly like an iMovie. So is there a way to basically, one way to say that is shortening the path from 4-hour stream export to a 20-minute well-produced YouTube video. And so it's a variant of, I think, something we could call summarization. So when I was exploring this last time, I was looking at stuff existing within, I guess you could say, the general area of Haskell programming and whatnot, since that is sort of my favorite way to both think about programming and program. And we were therefore looking at this tool from Oskar Wickström, Composition, which is a multi-platform tool that's advertised as being for screencasters, a video editor built for screencasters. And I'm looking at this partially because I'm curious about whether this could be a jumping point of which we could then maybe build something like a tool that would maybe do both streaming and editing. So I don't know what that would look like at all. So let me take a look at these tabs, because there's quite a bunch of tabs there, and also I realized this log hasn't been updated. And let me check quickly my checklist if I didn't restart my router, but this should be a short one. Create a new log file. I am in the screen scene and my mic is on. I don't have music nor my chat program, so let's get on with that. Okay. And we are ready to go. So going back on the log. So we're back with our keyboard problem, streaming things. So maybe I should put this here as a statement of intent. And so there's a lot of different ways to approach the problem, right? We could look at sort of well, we could look at it mostly from both the UX perspective and the tech perspective. And I think when we streamed last time about these things, I was looking a bit at the UX perspective, and I took a few notes. So let me try and find those. I suppose I can find those by doing a search for composition, maybe. Yeah. And this were our notes from that stream. So let's copy them here. So as I said, NLE, a nonlinear editor, things like Premiere, Final Cut Pro. There's also digital audio workstations like Ableton Live, which, interestingly enough, might be closer to Premiere or FCP, right? Because they can be used both for audio production and for audio performance or music performance, right? So that is a really interesting point in the design space in terms of interface. And I guess one of the key aspects of that is that they have this kind of tracker UX and a more traditional time-based UX. And the tracker UX, you could say, is basically like a table with cells and columns and rows. And the time-based UX is what you usually have in a nonlinear editor. So could it be that where we're looking at is something that's a mix between, in a way that Live does, a mix between a sort of a table interface, which in Ableton Live is used to create small clips, which will go inside cells. And in a performance mode, in the way that the old school trackers used to do, you can move from one row to the next, and those would be scenes. And switching between from one to the next will bring up a new set of clips. And each column will be an audio track or an instrument, and you move through scenes vertically. I should probably just show the interface, right? Oh, yeah, I was doing some research on that, and oh well, I have it open, so this is it, right? So tracks or audio, the columns represent an instrument. They can be MIDI instruments or audio instruments, like virtual synthesizers. The columns at the end represent the master audio track, so you can put effects there, and then those return tracks, which allow to route audio signals back and forth. And then the more traditional view is this view. And can I hide this? Yes, I can. Which is a more regular timeline view, where you would arrange your clips in time, and maybe also arrange transition between clips and so on. Whereas in the performance view, how is it called here? Session view. In the session view, you might be clicking from scene to scene, or using an external controller to move from scene to scene, and each scene would have a different set of instruments playing or not playing, and then even the clips can change from one to the other. You could have an intro here, and then like a verse here and a chorus here. So that means that in a performance view, actually, and you have hardware surfaces for that, like how is this thing called? Hardware as a controller. Ableton Live is selling one themselves, but let's look at the range of those. Maybe we'll see some inspiration. Right, the push is the Ableton made one, and you can imagine that having this grid here correspond to a grid like here will allow to not just necessarily only move, from row to row and changing you know, like key moments in a song in this case, but also actually rearrange it on the fly by saying, oh, okay, now I'm going to pause this particular instrument and then relaunch it, as well as doing other things, right? So, and usually, well, it's quite hard to do a performance with live just on a computer, not just because, you know, people don't like people, performers to be watching, looking at a screen while they perform. That's really bad etiquette. Hardware surfaces are much preferable to basically control the live session, for instance. But yeah, if you produce a track, then you will use this. You pretty much always will be inside this mode, except when you you might be editing instruments and so on. Then you might go here, or playing, dealing with your mix and sending effects and so on. Then you might be here. But if you produce, then you will want to see, you know, what happens at the beginning of the track, what happens at the end of the track, and then you'll export the whole thing. So if we look at composition, we see we're in the, I mean, we don't see it here, but if we move forward in that video, we see we are in a kind of a linear paradigm, right? So, well, in this case, I need to zoom in. Okay. Everybody's fighting for the bottom of the screen. The bottom here would be the clips. So we are in this more horizontal paradigm, not in this table-like paradigm. So here we could say this is a, yeah, this is a timeline or horizontal. Whereas here we could say we're two-dimensional. I mean, in the icon that that Ableton uses, this is the kind of vertical. The session view is sort of the vertical, whereas the timeline view is horizontal. And that's also not a bad way to think of it. But and so you can move clips from this view to this view, right, and arrange them and do things with them. But that's a good question, actually. Now, if I change this one, I don't even know whether it changes the other. If I delete this here, no, it doesn't delete what I've done here. So we see that, and you know, maybe that's preferable, but we see that disconnected. Those two views they're not exactly views on the same thing. It's relatively easy to move things between one or the other. The track settings are synchronized, although it's possible to have them not synchronized. And that could be used, for instance, by having your performance scripted a long time, you know, on the x-axis here, and move a long time, and then at one point sort of drop here, and then start playing with whatever moment you're in, and moving and removing tracks and so and clips and so on. And then clicking back here would then go back to exactly where you were in the arrangement without any modification you might have made temporarily on your track volumes and your effects and things like that. So that's a possible way to do it. I mean, it's interesting to wonder whether there's much evolution or, let's say, experimentation happening specifically in that space of these two types of view. Time-based, so we could imagine that maybe then we would have something like Streamlabs is here, and those are sources, and these are scenes, And this would be, for instance, in my Streamlab, or let me bring it up. I mean, this is not secret. You know, my starting soon screen could be a starting soon line with a, you know, an overlay source, and that would be the starting source overlay or something like that. And then when moving to screen, then we will have the screen source, and we'll be going through that. So in which case, that's pretty equivalent to having live basically being plugged into an external audio source, like I could be doing here. In fact, if I wanted, I could configure it to get my actual audio source, I think. Let's see if I do this. And I check 1, 2. Oh, they don't appear here. Why? Oh, because because I think it was a stereo track. So if I do this, check 1, 2. No, still doesn't appear. Or maybe that requires a reload in live. I'm not sure. If I create a new audio track, that's oh, audio from. Oh yeah, no, there we go. Yeah. Oh, sorry. This was audio 2. So audio 2 is generally going to master. So you see, there's a lot of routing potential here, which is, well, you could say that there's not a, like here it's more simple. So what I mean by that is, you know, this is all, in fact, going through this master screen here. But what if, you know, I wanted to output this to a monitor somewhere, but output it, I don't know, maybe just output my face or something if I was streaming with my face. Then maybe we need a little bit more routing. And I guess, you know, obviously Streamlabs is optimized for being user-friendly. So now we may be pushing the envelope to something that's more like semi-professional in terms of a tool, and so maybe closer to what OBS is doing. But I guess, you know, we also want it to be intuitive and maybe, you know, follow what's happening in terms of best practice and user experience that Streamlabs is going towards. And that's also why we were looking at the Twitch streaming suites. Let's see, let's bring it up too. I forgot what it looked like. Twitch Studio, that's the guy. Here it is. And here we're even simpler, right? We have only layouts. What's in settings? Stream. Recording. Some hotkeys. And settings for transitions. So it seems like main screen share would be one of the main things. There's some audio mixing possible, muting and whatnot. Possibility to record. And that's the same screen. So even more simple, right? I suppose if I plugged in a webcam, I would be able to maybe see it directly here, or maybe this actually turns on the webcam, but it's not even clear how I would add a new source here. Okay, so this is even simpler than Streamlabs. So we're probably not looking at they did a more simple side of the design space. I think I guess I'm more interested in the more sophisticated side of the design space. Okay, so okay, back to this idea of Ableton Live. Then, so we would have multiple sources. So we could have screen capture. In fact, multiple apps. And something I've been thinking about also, like we could indeed do something like grouping multiple apps together and lay them out. So for instance, right now I'm capturing my full screen here. So it's a screen that's dedicated to streaming, but I don't like the fact that either I would have a computer that's completely dedicated to streaming and it's completely compartmentalized, meaning I only show what I want to show. But if I end up working on this computer and doing things that I'm not ready to show yet, then there's always the possibility that, like doing an Alt tab or something, even though the Alt tab is actually, actually shows on my primary screen, which is not this screen, which is not the streaming screen. But even if I do things like if I open my file system, there's always a chance that I'm showing things that I'm working on and that I'm not ready yet to show. And so that's not the best. So people usually, oh, this is doing this again. So is that a gesture or what? It is. So, wow. I never realized that. Okay, so there is a gesture here in Windows 10 I wasn't aware of. What was I saying? Right, de-anonymization, or privacy, not privacy conscious. Well, OS to be clear, because now if we like I was talking about something fairly simple, which is if I have 2 application captures instead of a screen capture, then right now, for instance, even though I would be overlaying things on top, on screen you would only see, for instance, a laid out, tiled layout for my 2 apps. And it could be the same that what I see, but I would be sure that, even, if, I don't know, if somebody calls me or whatever, and there's a notification that pops up, come on, that you wouldn't see it on screen. And, I'm lucky to have multiple screens, but yeah, that would be quite useful for people who don't. Well, people who don't and want to do something fairly sophisticated streaming wise, right? Because in most cases, I could just stream this application, right? But if I had VS Code, but if I have let's say VS Code here, and then actually let's experiment with this a little bit more in the kind of a paper prototype tradition, I would say. So this could be display 3, for instance, right? That could be my whole screen, and this could be VS Code, and this could be Edge or browser, right? And this could be, and it's quite fitting. Here, like in live, this is an audio track, whereas these are MIDI tracks. And so audio track is really like, for instance, what comes from the microphone. A MIDI track is more like digitized source of music that could then maybe play a virtual instrument or play an external instrument. So I think that's quite close to what an overlay is. So we could have an overlay, an overlay track. And there could be, and this could be sort of intro and whatnot, and this could be like the dynamic overlays, right? Like the Twitch things, for instance, right? And this could be programmable, like the way that it is in Streamlabs for things like the chat box and the alert box for things coming in and whatnot. And this could even be in fact, there's a way to do something like that. You could say here, this is the alert box or something, right? And then you could say actually all of these. Oh, right now I think, how does it work? Group tracks, right? Right. So you'd say this is whoopsie. You'd say this is Twitch, and then you'd say this is maybe the what? Well, actually, something I was trying to do earlier, which is the stream title, right? In Streamlabs, there isn't a way to pick up a source in the sort of Twitch widgets thingies that is the stream title. So, you know, I looked in stream label. In stream label, you have things for followers and subscribers, and that's great, but not for something as simple as the stream title. So it means that my stream title overlay is in fact a just a text file. And that's ridiculous. I mean, in my view, that's ridiculous. But anyway, that's so it means that, you know, you could have something here that's a little widget that queries the API and gets the title of the stream, which is easy to do and whatnot, right? But so this will be a full screen display and whatnot, and we could group things. So, you know, we could say, actually, we could group these inside like a, you know, two-tiled layout, something like that, right? Which is like the one that I have on screen here. Yeah, so, you know, this would allow maybe to do interesting transitions and whatnot. So I guess, okay, I'm thinking out loud now to the type of things we might want to do, right? Actually, let me also save this as something like okay, proto stream video editor prototype. Okay, that's I hate it. Thank you. And what? And yeah, I'm thinking about different use cases here. So if we were coding and, you know, having our browser open at the same time, this two-tile layout could do that. And then if we were transitioning to and back and forth from an overlay, I guess in Streamlabs there is a way to be actually in a split mode where you can actually specify transitions. So that if I was to do this and click transition, then I would transition. In this case, the transition is in fact, well, there's no setting for the transition, but I think you can set the transition, right? Transition studio mode. It's in hotkey. Oh, so that's not it. Would it be in Prime? Oh, thank you very much. I hate it. Okay, so something already not fantastic. Edits in transitions. There's a global transition and it's a cut. And so we could change this to a what's a stinger? Okay, that needs a video file. So motion, okay. I mean, fade might be nice. Let's try it. Okay, I need to select be right back, for instance. Yeah, it's nice. So how would that work in this context? Right, there is no such concept in this UX of a transition. So that's interesting. And, you know, I don't like the fact that you gotta dig into, you know, obviously it would be better if there was a settings buttons here. So that's just from a UX perspective. The fact that it's here just doesn't make sense. Don't even know how I found it really. But so it being here and the settings too, that's one thing. But this makes sense, right? Like, so if we're saying that we're transitioning from this to this, then we kind of want something in between. That's the proper, you know, spatial positioning to understand that this means transition. But obviously, what if, you know, we're now talking about jumping between other things? Then it's not so clear. Oh, actually, makes me remember that there is such a thing for. It's not the delay; it's the crossfading. It's a slightly different concept. But this is for using live as more of a DJ. And so you can actually have let's say 2 tracks. And you can say, well, this track is the one I'm playing now, and I'm going to play this one next. So I'm actually on A. And I play A, and then I start queuing this one. And so, you know, usually you might... you might route it so that you can monitor this even while you're playing this, and then you would then crossfade, you know, while you're mixing the 2 tracks, and then end up mixing the new track. And there are interfaces that are more dedicated for DJs for live, I believe. Well, actually, they're not in this list, but they are here, crossfade here. Makes me think also that in that case, a lot of those hardware interfaces could be reused. In fact, they come from a tradition of like stage lighting and automation and things like that. But it's quite divorced, the performance, from the more production side of things. So what would it look? So we're kind of playing now with the idea of how well suited a more table-like UX would be for a more streamlined, or so stream-oriented UX. And well, so let's do a kind of a more like almost one-to-one mapping and see whether we would have everything we need. Oh, okay. So apart from, you know, events and whatnot, let's start from the top. The current preview. So that's something that in audio is just like, well, yeah, as you can see, it's just the how is it called? The view meter. If we had video, we need like a master video box somewhere, and where it would be best to have it in this corner, I think. Do I want to start something a bit more graphic-y in terms of doing layout here? I think I'm going to be doing this super low tech. No, this is going to be too painful. Oh, but there is an ASCII art online tool. It's in fact a ASCII diagram online tool I'm thinking of. Maybe this one. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So we're talking about something like this. I'm going to suffer from the fact that it's too small. wouldn't be able to annotate much. Yeah, and in fact, the columns, you'd kind of, oh, that makes me think of VJ Software. And I think I've written about VJ Software. Oh, well, I was talking at least of VJ Software before. So, yeah, which is the other folks that did this type of hardware controller way before. Well, I don't know if they did it before everybody, but they did it a while back. Okay. So yeah, I'm thinking about VJ Software because some of them actually, isn't it Matrix 8 or something? Matrix 8 VJ, yeah. It's not that, it's something 8. Maybe it's just Matrix. Modulate, okay. Isn't this one like very grid-like? There's a grid there. Whoa, there's lots of things. No, so this one's not grid-like at all. And Resolume went through quite a number of redesigns, and yeah, I think well, I think you can reconfigure everything, but oh well, that's more, feels more grid-like in fact, but it's flexible. I think you can indeed do anything you want. So what do we have here? Layout. We have layers and groups and clips. So same concept, but here we reversed, meaning, well, there's no concept necessarily that I can see here of a scene. So a way to just say, okay, these 4 things play together. But, and also other point is that, well, I guess then these layers get assigned to, so here we see text animator is actually here, while this group 1 is here. And this might be the master composition. So kind of a different, so yeah, this is this plus this, right? And so we see that there's now a, well, by the force of things, I suppose, because of screen real estate, right? But these, even though this corresponds to this layer, this corresponds to these layers, those aren't aligned, right? So I'm just wondering whether, you know, it's possible to have, yeah, and the other thing is that because video tends to be wider than high, then I guess maybe it has a, well, you could say that this could be stacked, really. There's no reason why this wouldn't be stacked. It's interesting. But you could have, you know, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so if we were to keep more of our vertical metaphor, then I suppose you would say the result is at the bottom, for instance. And so this would be maybe your master. And then we see, and then this would be your source. And you do some settings there. And you'd have some clips here. And then, well, actually, that corresponds to a scene, right? So it'll be quite of a sparse array, a sparse table. You'd basically, you know, you have like a intro here and be right back, right? Things like that. And then you have here maybe, yeah, it would be quite sparse because, let's see, if I remove this, if this is overlays, and this is, let's say, what did we have in, well, we have our Twitch overlay, but let's imagine that it's more like our, maybe, let's start with imagining that it's a display. Then if it's a display, then, you know, okay, fine, it's displaying here, all great, but what's here? There isn't much in terms of things that change when you change scene. The display basically remains the same. Well, what happens is that maybe in some cases it's on and in some cases it's off. So for instance, here it's off as well as here. But then here, if this is like live, then it's on. But still, if you want to maintain this grid metaphor, then I guess still it's doing something here, whatever it is. So maybe not the best use of space here, even though I really like it because it's very logical, right? It's very grid-like. I mean, I like, you know, not to say that grids and square are the top of any aesthetic, right? But I'm quite partial to round things in life, and tree-like things and nature and graphs very much so. But in a screen, and I like to think about deconstructing these tables with kind of a graph-like structure underneath in some ways. But so yeah, so using all of this real estate just to do off and on is not the best. Okay, but we could imagine, you know, that this could be hidden, pop sort of out and in as needed. Okay. And so then routing things, so then we'd have the master here, right? So this would also have that thing, but and scenes here. So you know, it's scene one, or I guess this would also be called like an intro, right? Because well, actually, let me wondering now. Okay, let's imagine that it's like that. Now we have things here, and that therefore this is, I guess this would be called master. And then these would be scenes, so intro scene, and be right back scene, and live scene. And then I guess you could always sort of like, you know, click the display off in a live scene. So you could modify this a bit in real time in the way that it's done in a live performance, Ableton Live. And so that could be nice. And in Ableton Live, by the way, these are done by, if you have a clip here, then you can play or you can stop it. Actually, it would be quite nice to have another, like a stop button right next to it, because stopping it means usually clicking below or clicking in this whole track stopping button. So if we had that like a play and well, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this, except maybe if I do some ASCII art inside the ASCII art, like that, right? Except it wouldn't be here. Can I copy paste here? No. More not that this is import export. Yeah. Right, it would be something like that, and you have this everywhere. Actually, I should have. I can copy that. And playing the on and playing the off maybe doesn't make sense so much, but and then you could also have it here, right? Okay, and actually I can copy this, except that yeah, I will need to deactivate the word wrap. Yeah. So that's the thing. And then what happens then when we try to sort of morph our way towards a more horizontal timeline? And another way also to think about it is, well, what if we, you know, transpose it and have something that's in fact a little bit more like what we were seeing here, except here doesn't really have the notion of time moving from right, left to right. We could add that, and then we'd have something that's in fact more more like this interface, but maybe with cells. So we have scenes, and then it seems like in fact morphing to a more of a like a YouTube video edition mode, like something where you're actually trying to create a final product. Maybe that'll be easier to even to think about, right? Okay, let's try this. So let's consider that it's saved, and let's try it this way around. So if we say now these are our tracks, time is moving from right to left, and let's say that master is at the bottom. Don't do that. Then this could be the preview area, which matches with what we have here. In fact, except that here, the only indicators, oh no, we do have indicators here if signal comes in. So let's see, if I pick one, I can show you that. 1, 2, if I put it on record, check 1, 2, right? So this is the view meter, and that could be the equivalent of being able to preview something from our track. And so now we would be, oh yeah, we'd have an overlays track, right? And so where does, oh, so here they're displayed here in that kind of middle-ish column in Live. I'm wondering whether, in fact, displaying it sort of more around here wouldn't be a good option. Let's try that, since maybe I haven't done like a 4-3. Okay, maybe. Okay, like this. I want to have room to write vertically, which is not going to be pleasant. It's not too bad, in fact. Overlay. And let's say, well, let's say that this is the display, for instance. And that this is, well, that we know that this is live. And so now, oh wow, I didn't realize we could do that. That's very cool. Now we would have scenes. So I need to cap that. And we would have scenes that are vertical. Which is, you know, this reminds me of my friend Rob Orshorn's work with, let's say, how is it called? Interlace. There's this conference. He did the UX for this conference. That was totally awesome. Yeah, there we go. So their time progresses left to right, except it flows, right? It wraps around. Actually, and it's and this maps text and is this not going to play here? Oh, this works fine on Chrome. I don't know why. Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, that's quite unfortunate. So normally it plays the video in this frame, and it's actually, the video is not static, and it actually moves around with the cursor. This is really amazing UX experiments. Really smart guy. Hi Rob, if you see this. So
it's from
oh, it is playing. I was just preloading, I guess. So yeah, so you get to see this.
And it's images of Iran. Okay.
Pretty cool, right? So where was I in my ASCII thing? Why was I thinking of this? Well, because it has this, because I was thinking of preview, and I was thinking of the fact that if there is a doodle here that, you know, represent, well, that in fact we could have doodles here as well, Like this could be in my, in my Streamlabs, for instance. Starting soon is just starting soon the text, but it could be superior here if it was starting soon, but in like this small, white on black thing here. If I could see this here, a bit like in a VJ tool, right? Then I'd have the preview and I'd really know where I am. And same way, well, I guess for display, my, here would be, well, what we would have here. We would have like a code, right? Something like how I like to do it with my tile thing. Easy to tell what I'm talking about, right? So then there's a question of why would it be here rather than here is where I'm. Let's see. Like if we say that this is like a intro scene. Ah, yeah. So in that case, here would be black. And if we say like this is the B-Ride or BRB scene, then in this we'd have a be right back, right? So, well, actually, let me do this a little bit more faithfully here and say this would be, starting and soon, right? And this would say be right back. And then we'd have a live scene here. And well, the overlay in this case could be empty, or it could be, like just my bottom bar, right? Like my title bar and whatever. This could be like the grouped overlays, right? We could expand this and it could show all of the things that are inside, and they would display nicely. And then what I'm getting at is that this could have the, my tiled display thing I'm trying to represent here. And so then, that off would mean there's no image, but on live you see that it's a moving image, and so you'd see it, and then and then you could have your webcam here, and that would have your face, so you'd be able to sort of comb yourself nicely without being with the background there. Or I mean, it could be here, right? Oh, that's interesting. I just realized that then if you compress things down to a line, you could still move from scene to scene, except that they would be composited there, because the operation between these cells is, well, the basic one is overlay, right? But, so we're back into this question of what are transitions or where they are displayed. And that's quite interesting because, actually even Photoshop, for instance, I'm thinking about Photoshop right now because this is, what is it called? Like the layer transfer properties, like the way in which your top layers will compose or add themselves onto the bottom layers, which is the essence of compositing. So either layering for an image or compositing is called for video or 3D stuff. So that's nice. I like the fact that, like you can expand it and then you can play with it and then poof, it can go back down. That's pretty neat. And then you can still, if it goes back down, you can kind of having it as a toolbar somewhere, even maybe on a hardware surface or something, and be able to preview what the scene will be if you swap it. And click on the header and have it move around. And transition, it could be that they wouldn't be a bad fit to have around this kind of area, right? Well, actually, so very interesting. There's composition, right? There's the compositing of a few live sources together, or vertical composition in this case. And then there's horizontal composition, which is time-driven composition, which is what happens when you move from one scene to another, which I suppose could be here. Or here. Huh. Conceptually, they are in between each things, right? But here is not a bad place for them, right? It depends. It could be that actually we have like a little extra slot in there where we describe how we compose things, maybe. I'm not sure. Okay, now everything is grid-like, and you can think of it as, you could, maybe have annotations like, because this is also a schedule, right? Like, meaning this is kind of T0, and you can think of here being T1 and here being T2. At the beginning, we don't know when these things are, but as I click, whatever, go live, then this kind of starts. And then it's kind of up to me to switch to, live or be right back and switch between. And then each instance of switching is in fact an instantiation of the beginning of those segments or scenes. Actually calling them segments is the way they call this on TV, don't they? So calling them segments is not a bad idea. And these are, I think, previews, we could say. Oh, no, those aren't previews, in fact. Or are they? Hold on, where are my previews? Are they here? No, they're definitely not here. These are my previews. So, but hold on, this is also a preview, isn't it? Maybe I don't need those. Maybe in fact I was mistaken, and this is where we have our preview here at the bottom now. This is where we have our whereas here we don't. Then what do we have? What do we have here? Nothing. It's just segments. And so we say this is the beginning. Oh, well. I'm a bit annoyed that I can't move things. Select, copy, cut, and move. No, so I am supposed to be able to. I just haven't found how. And I found how. So this makes more sense. And then this is a sort of an open timeline. Like we don't need to cut the screen at this level. And so we move along time. No, we don't really move along time. So yeah, okay. So this is where the movement between this kind of table UX and a real time-based UX. Now we're morphing in ways that are going to be keeping the lanes, at least. Yeah, keeping the lanes. But here we will move from basically either scenes or time, which I started actually. This tension is already apparent here because this is a scene and I say it starts at T0, but then there's the question of Okay. I think I'm having a thought here. Let's say that T0 is well, what time is it now? Well, it's time actually I start moving on to the next stream, but I missed my T0, and so here I'm just gonna finish this thought here, because kind of saying that maybe here we would say, okay, intro was here, and then we had like all of this time of live scene. Sorry about that. So maybe here, and we delete that. And you know, this was at 1701, and copy paste works fine. Don't know what I was saying earlier. Oopsie. To move this over there. And so could be then that that this would be more of a performance grid, but then that while we're performing, we have a reminder of how we are laying out these segments in real time, or yeah, in real time, but on a timeline more precisely. And then adding markers here makes a lot of sense. And then once we're done, or as we are going forward, which is kind of a hidden thing, and I'm going to just reveal it here for those who followed the video up to now. I'm kind of thinking about the fact that maybe imagine that I was streaming now, and that more people were watching than one viewer, and that as I was moving through different scenes, and maybe having scenes that are content related, right? So not just a screen, but maybe which tab I've opened, and then maybe one also that's just transcribing what I'm saying in real time, and that could be a track. And that at the same time that this is happening, some viewers, like some particular type of moderators, are actually assembling markers and annotating things, and maybe building up not just the real-time timeline of what is being streamed, but in fact one or several edits to be published on YouTube with all of the important highlights. And so at the end of a stream, I could sign off, stay with my editors or moderators, and chat about and watch transitions and look at the timelines, and then sort of kind of sign off, and then click export, and then we'd be done. And it would be, and with good enough editors, maybe there wouldn't even be a sign off period, and as the stream is ended, they would already have basically their edit done, because several could work on it at the same time. So that's it. That's a kind of secret thought that I've been having about how to go, and this seems like that would be a UX that would potentially allow something like that. So stay tuned for some more UX thoughts, and maybe at some point we start programming them as well. All right. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. And I'm looking for my Streamlabs on another screen, and it's right in front of me. So I'll say thanks for watching, and I will see you later. Bye bye.